Hello. This is going to be a wild one. Strap on, guys. I've done some writing this morning and into the afternoon. Didn't sleep well last night again. Too much on my mind. It's okay. I'm tired, but not exhausted. Dr. Jordan Peterson, this one's for you. Thank you, my friend, for what you do. I think we just might turn this thing around. Here's what I've got for you. First of all, I'm going to have my first drink in several weeks. I think I'm ready for it. I think I've developed the habit, but I'm going to put a limit on myself. I will not drink again for 7 days. No drinks until May 10th. You see me drinking, recording videos. I record videos almost every day. You comment on them below and tell me, Carl, you're screwing up. I don't think I'm going to screw up. All right, here we go. So what happened today? Well, a bunch. Probably going to get a lot of shows out of this last 36 hours or so. Forgive me for wandering around. I'm just boiling over. It's been a wild one. So hold on. So I got into an argument. Facebook. Love arguing online. It's fun. It's fun because eventually I stop shit posting, rage posting, and actually get into an argument with someone that's decently intelligent enough to hold their own weight for the opposite side. And then I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to do the best I can to change that person's mind. Trying to be open myself. I wasn't very open today now that I think back on it. I wasn't very open. But that's because I've thought about this a lot. I've read this bad boy. Watched probably at least hundreds of hours of Jordan Peterson's videos online. And I think it's getting in there. So I argued for about an hour or so with this gentleman. I was pretty nasty, actually. I was cursing, not treating him with respect. For that, I do apologize. It's not my best. And when I'm not doing my best, that I'm treating only one guy, and that's me, and then I cheat myself, well, then I can't manifest myself the best out into the world. And then I end up cheating you, because I cheat me and then I cheat you. Or I can manifest the best self and then I get the best self for me and I can give it to you. And I care about that a lot. I got 2 little kids that say this over and over again. That's why I'm doing this. Let me read to you what I have. I'm not going to read it straight off. I'm going to use it as notes, so forgive the pauses. I want this to be a little bit of a stream of conscious, because if I do it this way, I know I'll come up with even more ideas and refine them. So, we'll call my opponent Bob. And Bob is a nihilist. The trick with him is, as with most nihilists that I've run into, he doesn't know he's a nihilist. Or at least wants to refute that fact. And who wouldn't? It's a fairly nasty term to call someone. No one wants to hear that someone else thinks that they have no meaning. Because there is something fundamental to having meaning. But he was continuously giving me the argument that life is futile. And he was using the heat death, the eventual heat death of the universe, and I'm not sure when it's supposed to happen, but it's billions of years out, even after our sun explodes. You don't need to use the heat death of the universe to try to convince me that this game is going to end, so what's the point in trying? Because that was his argument. The game's going to end eventually. It's nothing but suffering between now and then, so why try? It's pointless. That's nihilism, guys. He won't You won't think so. It's okay. Doesn't matter for the argument what label we put on it. His argument was something like, well, I kind of jumped in the middle of this conversation, and I think, I don't remember what the original post was about. It was something about intelligent people and having more suffering because they understood exactly how the world was. How the world is to us. And it's tough. It's hard. There's a lot of suffering. Life is suffering. There's no denying it. Eventually you're going to die. You got to deal with that. You're not going to be here the whole time. And while you're on your way, bad shit's going to happen to you. I won't be cursing in this one. I'm just going to let it go. I don't want to try and censor myself. I'm just going to say what comes to mind. So between now and the time you die, there's going to be great stuff and a bunch of meaningless stuff and a bunch of stuff that is something close to hell. At least that's the framework that Peterson gives us. And the man has read a lot. He studied the giants upon which we stand, and I think he has a pretty good idea because he has an amazing mind that processes and collects information, and I think I share that with him. So let me take his perspective and see if I can't layer anything on it, or if nothing else, see whether I understand it correctly or not. Hope it's useful for you. Let's see. So here's Bob's argument. Universe is going to end in hate, death, eventually. Bob is choosing not to have children. He believes this is a moral choice because life is suffering. Why would you bring another being into this world when life is suffering? Wouldn't the kindest thing be to not bring your potential children into the world and not have them be born so that they don't suffer? Okay. Maybe. Maybe it will be nothing but suffering from here to there. So Bob saw himself as extremely moral for not perpetuating the game into the future because he realized that, or he feels that, eventually it's nothing but suffering all the way through. So why would you inflict that on anybody, especially your own children? Shouldn't you care most about your own children? And if you realize that, then you don't have them. You're protecting your non-children. It's a really disturbing perspective for me, because I already have kids. So I have to, if he's right, let's give him a little credit. Let's play the game. Is he right? Okay, the world's nothing but suffering. There's no point to it. We should reduce the amount of suffering as much as we can to the greatest extent possible. We do that by reducing the number of humans on the planet. If you're already here, I don't know, he never made that argument. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do if you're already here. He did mention playing video games, that he had a dog. I guess those were things of pleasure, because there was another person that was kind of arguing alongside me. We'll call him Joe. And Joe was telling Bob, well, look, don't you have any compassion in you? Don't you have any kindness? Don't you have any nurturing attitude? Why don't you want kids? Bob says, well, I don't want kids because I'm too kind to them. I'm too nurturing. I understand that this life sucks. And I don't want them to hurt. Avoiding pain. Very logical perspective to a certain extent. But let's try and pretend that he's right. What's it mean if he's right? Well, if you understand that, wouldn't you want to encourage as many people as possible to not have children? Because by birthing children, then you're increasing suffering. And life is suffering from here to the grave. I think we both agree on that. Absolutely. I think that he has more suffering in his life than I do. In fact, I can almost guarantee that. Because I like life. I always have. There's been very few times when I've been down to the abyss, so to speak. There have been a couple of times. But it was always worth crawling back up. And thank God I had my wife with me the last time that happened. Which was an amazing thing that she helped me, because I inflicted that upon myself and pulled her down with me. Thank you, Tomomi. So, well, is he right? That means we need to go away. Maybe we're in the way of the universe spawning something new. I don't know what that would be. Something new, similar to life. And we need to make way for it. Because if we're here perpetuating our suffering into the future, then we're getting in the way of that. I'm not sure if that's his argument or not, but I think that's the logical extension of it. So let me get into what I wrote. So we'd gone back and forth several times, and he constantly made the argument that, and I was constantly calling him nihilistic for it, which he denied. Constantly making the argument that he understands that life is suffering. He doesn't want to have children because that's the kindest thing to do to any potential kids that you could have. And so he's being kind to a non-entity, as I see it, and one that will never come into being. I think that's a convenient excuse. A good way to sit on your butt and play as much video games as possible, get your dopamine drip on, pet your dog, feel good. It sounded like that's about all he was doing. And I don't know what he was doing for his job. He made the point several times that, well, I'm at work, and so I really can't make this argument very well. I don't have time, which I think is complete BS, because he had no problems jumping back in and typing every once in a while. Maybe he could only type a smaller blurb than he would have liked to. Maybe there's a big flushed out argument that I'm going to see. But I'm going to do this. So we were going back and forth, and it was starting to be, we got to an impasse, absolutely. And he wouldn't recognize that, so I stopped. I'm like, okay, get away from Facebook. That damn timer, red world circle is going to light up again, and then I'm going to get distracted. So get that thing away. Minimize that screen. Open up a Word document, and let's get busy. Cheers. We'll see how that hits me. It's been a while. Okay. So I start writing. The words come very easily. I think I've done the work and consulted with my subconscious enough so that I've picked up and really made these arguments a part of myself. And so to move me off of them, yes, that's going to take a lot of cognitive dissonance and some uncomfortable things. And it's going to be tough to be open. But man, it's really compelling. So here we go. Okay. So I said, look, I'm going to make my case one more time, and you're going to yell and rage at me afterwards. And then I'm not going to respond. I know you're going to rage at me one more time. This dude is buried in his nihilism, and he's already been repeating his arguments. You keep restating your nihilistic argument, and you claim it's not nihilistic. Because you said so. You don't understand what the definition of nihilism is, and he was telling me that I didn't understand what the definition of nihilism is. To him, if you're nihilistic, nothing has meaning. So then there's no truth, and he wouldn't, in other words, he wouldn't be able to make an argument if he was nihilistic. I think his version of nihilistic was, you lay on the couch, you don't interact with anybody, what's the point? I mean, really, really depressive nihilism. No, he's on his way there. He is definitely on his way there. And I'm not going to be able to save him unless he decides to, well, I'm not going to be able to save him. Not today, anyways. We'll get to that later. Let me get to the top of this. Okay. So I told him, look, you'll copy paste this, what I'm going to give you now, save it. In a year, 5 years, or when you start thinking about having a kid, or if you accidentally stumble into one by having sex with it, if it just happens, well, that just happened, that's carelessness. But come back, please take a look at this again, because you're going to be manifesting different personas then. You're not going to be the same person. We grow, we change. It's one thing that's absolute about us. Very few people remain stuck in their rut. Well, maybe I shouldn't make that assertion. I know I don't get stuck in my rut. Oh, all right. So look, hang on to this. Come back to it. Find this video even. If you don't want to do that, then I'm okay with the death of your genetic set. Because you are not replicable. That's a pretty damned harsh thing to say of me. But it's true. You can't go through life without meaning. There eventually is no point. That is nihilism. You can live your life how you want. No one can force you to do anything. As long as you don't aggress against others, I'm okay with you living your life however you want. You can play as much God of War, sit in comfort on your couch, pet your dog, feel loved, enjoy the companionship you're going to have with him. If you're having a good time and you're happy, go for it, man. I'd prefer you do something else. But that's not my choice, it's yours. Knock yourself out, bucko. But if you keep believing that, as you age, you're going to lose your meaning. I don't think very many people can go through this life just playing video games. Eventually, that source of dopamine drip dries up. I don't think that's capable of happening forever. Video games are very addictive because they provide a source of meaning. Especially ones where you're online and you're interacting with other people. There's actually a lot of value in that, so I'm not dissing video games. I am saying that if that's all you do, you're really not helping the rest of us out. And who knows how the future's going to go. Maybe you can play video games until your biological clock runs out. Till that last telomere drops off of a key cell in an organ, and you start down the final road toward where we are all going. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you'll be able to extend, who knows? I mean, we may be able to extend the life of humans within up to 200 years. We don't know what good we're going to be able to do in the near future, within my lifespan, I believe. And I think this guy is younger than me. Bob's younger than me. This is going to drive me nuts. Bob's younger than I am. Oh, we lost Triumph and Tragedy. Hey, I'm going to give the shout out to the GMT guys. You guys can thank me later or hate me later. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. I happened to have that on my video last night when I was really going through some old memories. Okay. Eventually, you're not going to be able to tap into that artificial dopamine drip of fake meaning, video game meaning, leveling up World of Warcraft characters, or whatever the hell everybody plays these days. I don't know anymore. I'm not playing very much. I'll sit down and play something with my kids. That was fun. I had a good time playing a game called Crawl over the weekend with them. Enjoyed that a lot. Maybe we're headed towards Ray Kurzweil's singularity. I don't know. But if that's true, then screw the heat death of the universe. What's that got to do with anything? But your satisfaction in simple pleasures is going to diminish, and I know that with a high degree of certainty. What are you going to do then? You can deny that it might ever happen, because you might be right. You might even accept that it might happen and sign you're fine with suicide at that point. Because eventually the suffering of your body is going to overcome the pleasure that you can induce in yourself by having orgasms and playing video games. Watching porn. And you're a logical person, obviously, because you don't feel good about your arguments and your decision to extract as much pleasure out of the moment unless you're backing it up. Which is why you've got this whole heat death of the universe. It's all pointless bullshit argument. Here's why it's crap. There's so much time between now and then. And you don't know what we're going to build between now and then. And I told you that if you want to dig yourself out of this hole, then get up and go build something. And find meaning in that. Even if you don't want to have kids. I think having kids is one of the greatest meanings that you will ever have in your entire life. Everything changes. Everything changes when you have kids. And so if you don't have kids, I don't want to hear from you about whether it's worth it or not. Because you're not trying. So what are you going to do? Are you going to check out when you're suffering, the suffering of your body, the suffering of the circumstances of your life eventually becomes more than it's worth the small amount of pleasure you're getting from whatever it is you're doing for fun? So you're going to have a choice. So life is suffering and there's no goal because you think entropy is going to take us out. Okay, fine, maybe. You might be right. I don't think so, but it's a possibility. The logical choice would then be for you to exit this life as soon as it's not worth it for you anymore. When it hurts too much, you just go. When you can't see a future where it doesn't hurt, you go. You take yourself out of the game. Or you can accept that life just might have its own meaning. And that the 3.5 billion years of things dying are what we rest upon and what we stand upon. And it's why I'm here talking on the most fantastic delivery device of information that has ever been seen on the face of this earth, ever. Maybe that's worth 3.5 billion years of death and suffering and things dying and being reborn. I think we better treat that with some respect and be grateful. Because if you choose to end the game, fine, it's your choice, it's your body, it's your life. But there's a problem with it because you're connected to this whole thing. And the more people that we have that are working towards making this however much further we have to go, the less suffering there's going to be. And the more people we just have hanging on, is the more superfluous baggage that we have. And that's quite cruel of me to refer to people as superfluous baggage. But if you're not picking up and shouldering your burden, that's kind of what you're doing. Again, your choice, and I'm not going to aggress against you for it, but I'm damn well going to get in your face and argue with you because you could be doing so much more. So maybe we're going somewhere. So those are your two choices you're going to come up with. You're either eventually going to check out when it hurts too much, or you're going to accept that life has a ton of meaning and that we're standing on the shoulders of giants and billions of years of biology and death and suffering and hard, unimaginable times that we don't have to live through. The amount of suffering on this planet right now is the smallest it's ever been, at least for the individuals upon it. Now, you could argue that because there's so many people on the planet, when we add up the sum total of the suffering of all those people, okay. But there's a bunch of us that get to stand in air conditioning rooms this summer and bitch on the internet. I think I'll take choice number 2. Thank you very much. So those are your two choices. You got, and there's 2 logical extensions of those. Well, each has its own logical extension. The logical extension of life is suffering and there's no point to it. And so we want to reduce the amount of suffering because there is no point to it by not perpetuating more humans on the world so that they don't suffer. Protect the unborn people that have not even been conceived yet and will be conceived somewhere out into some potential future. And by making sure that they're never born, you're doing a kindness. And if that's true, then yeah, don't have kids. If you believe that, please don't have kids. Because you're right. If you have kids with that worldview, you are doing them a favor by not having kids. So don't have kids, Bob. Not until you change your mind, anyways. So we're here. And we're here because people sacrificed and worked. In all likelihood, I would not be here if we were still stuck in the agricultural age because someone didn't invent, well, if we never had the Industrial Revolution, let's say. Let's just take it back that far. I wouldn't be here because we wouldn't have the machinery, we wouldn't have the automation, and we wouldn't be able to grow enough food so that my ancestors were able to perpetuate their genes forward into the future, and then I wouldn't be here because one of my ancestors would have died off. And I'm extremely fortunate, and Bob is extremely fortunate. We're all the amazing recipients of an unbelievable amount of good fortune. Because if any one of your ancestors had died off at any point in the past 3.5 billion years, or whenever life was created, spontaneously evolved, whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. But if anywhere along that chain, one of your ancestors died, you wouldn't be here. And so, enough of us, once we finally, maybe 100,000 years ago or so, 200,000 years ago, started to really develop consciousness in the way that you and I probably somewhat kind of sort of understand it as being similar to early Homo sapiens. we began to figure out that, well, we began to question why. For the first time, life asked the question why and not just how. Model of how is built into our genes. Lizards run around, they bite stuff and they eat it and they gobble it, they mate, they lay eggs, and then they die. And they never, ever, ever have any appreciation of why that might have been happening. I don't know that I have an appreciation of it, but I think I'm closer than a lizard is. So we have a series of driven human beings. Excuse me. A series of driven human beings who understood this to some degree, or at least followed this paradigm. They wanted to have kids, and so because they wanted to have kids, because that's natural, they wanted to make the world as good as they could, as well off as they could, to reduce the amount of suffering that their children experience. That's logical. So there are certain people that made the tools, made the things that let each generation play the game over and over and over again and keep it going. And the game is, well, if we make things just a little bit better, if we make one more tool, if we make one more idea, have one more idea that helps us all suffer a little bit less and makes it so that there can be more of us on this world, that seems to be working pretty damned well. And the room I'm standing in, and the fact that I don't have to worry about my neighbors coming and crashing through my window and taking all my stuff, is evidence of that. So we stand on the shoulders of all these people that sacrificed before us. And they sacrificed by not worrying so much about their pleasure in the immediate now. Not sitting around and just drinking. Or doing what was fun and pleasurable now. They did what made future self better. And that means they were doing the things that would make their children better as well. And Peterson uses this topic as, let's see if I can get it right. Well, the proper balance is that you keep yourself happy enough in the now so that you can lift up as much burden as possible and to make future self happy too. Because you owe him something. And if you don't treat future self very well, then you're going to look back on yourself and hate yourself. And we do that all the time. And I think that's a path worth continuing. This world has the least amount of suffering ever. I believe that. The most fun toys ever. I'm surrounded by them. I have a fun time with them. I certainly did as a kid growing up. God, all I did was play on my Apple IIc computer, go over to my friend's house. We'd swap computers and play different video games. It was fantastic. I never had to worry about getting eaten by a damn tiger or dying of smallpox or being drafted and sent off to war. Yeah, there might have been some dude that could have broken into my house, something like that. Think about it this way. There's so few problems now compared to the past that some of us feel like, in order to feel like we're doing something, they've got to make up problems. And thus the social justice warrior phenomenon. Because doing that makes people feel good. They feel like they're doing something. Because we need meaning, damn it. If you don't have meaning, you got nothing. That's the wrong meaning, SJWs. Stop it. This is better. So I think there's a path worth continuing because it's the best now as it's ever been. And it's only going to get better. So you either think it's going to get worse or it's going to get better. The path that we're on right now tells us it's getting better, and it always has been. That's not a straight line all the way up. It's got bumps and bumps, but it's still going up. It's pretty easy to concentrate on the bumps because you might be living in a time such as those born into the greatest generation who had to go fight World War II. Man, if you were born into Stalingrad in, say, 1920, you were screwed. And there wasn't a damn thing you could do about it if you decided to stay there your whole life. You were screwed. There's still fields of bones from World War II outside of Stalingrad. You can walk through them, they crunch. Don't go do it, there's still landmines and shit out there. So maybe you don't believe we live in a world with the least amount of suffering. That's Bob's case. Maybe, and I think he's probably got that perspective because he is suffering. Why would you argue for it otherwise? Unless this dude is hiding something from me, I can guarantee it. I don't know what happened to him because you don't come to this perspective if you have a good childhood. Or if some traumatic experience has not happened to you in some way. So I don't know what happened to this guy, but he's not right. And he's not oriented correctly. And that's why he's miserable. And that's why he's arguing that this world is so much suffering that it's not worth it. And we should quit. And I've had several friends that are like this. I actually was talking to one maybe a month and a half ago. We had a good old argument. No, it wasn't so much an argument. I think I was giving him a new perspective on things. You know who you are if you watch this. Let's talk sometime again. Make sure you're around for it. Talk to your brother for me. But if you truly believe what Bob believes, then yes, don't have children. Because it doesn't matter whether you're right or not. You believe you're right. And you'll communicate that to your children. And you will be physically abusing them by giving them mentally abusing them by giving them that perspective. Because it's a perspective without meaning. And if you rob an individual of meaning, you are doing them a drastic disservice, to put it mildly. Okay, so maybe he's right. Maybe Bob's right. Okay, the game's going to end in the heat death of the universe, and there's nothing but suffering between now and then. 10 billion years of it. And he could be right. And the game's going to end at some point, no matter what. The universe is the heat death of the universe is the hard stop. I believe he's right about that. But he's saying that that's all you need to know. And once you know that, you don't need to think about it anymore. Dude, you stopped thinking. That's why you have that conclusion. You're happy with your conclusion. When you're happy with your conclusion because it's giving you an excuse to do the things that are already making you happy, why do you need to think anymore? Why would you? Because then you're going to have to go back and look at your life and go, shit! I've been screwed up! And now I got to change things, and that's going to hurt. And you have to have this little personality death. I think that's what Jesus is all about. Jesus is it's not that some dude died on a cross and came back to life 3 days later. It doesn't matter whether that actually happened or not. The story is, if Jesus is the ideal guy that you want to be, then that means at some point you got to die and be reborn. What the hell does that mean? I think it means this, and I think I'm just repeating Jordan Peterson here, but it feels good to know it and have it plugged in. And then maybe if I have that, I can build off of it and decide whether it's really right or not. It sounds right so far. The personalities that live inside of us, the Jungian perspective of we don't have ideas, ideas have us, and that we are inhabited by these different personas that manifest themselves into the world, and we are gripped by them until something happens to us that makes one of those personalities die and a new one come forward. This has happened to me several times in my life, I believe. I may have to do another video on it, but the first one I can remember is, it probably happened somewhere around the time where I was starting work. No, I think I was still pretty immature all through during that. I know I've had one recently. That's why I'm standing in front of this microphone, because I was a militant atheist 2 years ago. I believed that, well, the militant atheist perspective is something like, our ancestors, thanks guys, but you were a bunch of ignorant dummies. And you believed in all these myths, and look at these ridiculous stories, and how horrible some of them are. Abraham being told by God to sacrifice his only son? What kind of horrible story is that? How immoral. But no, it's not that simple. And thank you, Dr. Peterson, for finally waking me up from that. And it took a while. Stefan Molyneux, thank you too. You wake up from the militant atheist perspective because it doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't give you a goal other than to go out and destroy something. If you're a militant atheist, then you want to crush all religion. Because if we crush all mysticism, because you see all religion is mysticism, if you do that, then somehow magically we all, I don't know what they think. I don't know what I thought. I just knew, well, there's some dangerous stuff out there, and there's some things about religion that are dangerous. Oh God, look at Islam, of course, but even fundamental Christianity. Well, any fundamental version of any religion is quite toxic. So, and I won't back down from that. But that doesn't mean we need to ignore the stories. We need to learn from them. There's a lot in there. Okay, back to Bob's argument, or back to my message to Bob. So you got two paths. You either have the fact that it's nothing but suffering all the way through, so you may as well take your pleasure while you can, and then when the suffering gets too much, you check out. Or the more life, especially human life, that there is on the planet, the greater chances there are of something magical is the wrong word, but something amazing manifesting itself into the world. And I think we see that because the world is better now than it's ever been at any point in our history. And it's getting better at a more rapid and quick rate. In fact, it's going so damn fast for us right now, we're having a hard time keeping up. But that's for another video. So, the game's going to end at some point. Bob's right. But he ignores all the time between now and whatever horrible thing is going to happen. You don't know what the future is going to hold between now and the heat death of the universe. You don't know what the future holds between now and the sun swelling into a red giant in 3 or 4 billion years and gobbling the earth up and burning us to a crisp. Hopefully we're gone by then. Or we're something completely different. Who knows, but that's longer than life has been around. And we've only been around 100,000 years or so. 200 maybe. You don't know what's going to happen, if World War III is going to happen in a decade. So yeah, maybe having kids is just subjecting them to have to go, the possibility that they're just going to get burned in a nuclear fire. Or gray goo. Or whatever new technology that gets out of our hands. Because if there's one thing I know for sure, you can't hold back the human mind. even the most dangerous things will be created at some point. And we're going to have to learn how to deal with that. So there's a million things that could go wrong between now and whenever game over button happens. You don't even know if you're going to be alive tomorrow. You could have a stroke. You could get hit by a bus. You could find that you have cancer and you'll be dead in a month or two. You don't know. But because you don't know, you can't say that it's going to be suffering all the way through. It might not be. And don't you owe it to the people that do have children to do your best to reduce their suffering? Because just because you think that you would be doing a cruelty by birthing children into the world, and with this mentality, yes, you would be, don't do it. Change your mind first, please. That means you better not be having sex. Sorry, that's harsh. There's always a chance you're going to have a child anytime you have sex. Always some chance. Abortion is not a solution. It's hard on the woman. And they'll tell you it's not. Because they're expected to say, oh, that was my choice. Another video. Okay. So you don't know anything. There's an inevitable disaster coming, but you don't know when. And you don't know how much suffering is going to be in between now and then. But you do know there's going to be people around until then. So what are your choices? Number one, you ignore the world and everybody else in it. You enjoy the pleasures of life until the suffering of the limitations of your biology makes it too damn painful for you to continue the game. And then you make the logical choice, because you're a logical person, that I don't want to suffer. There's no way I'm going to get better. You check out. You lived your life, and like millions of us before, you're forgotten. And you had no impact on this world. In fact, because you had no impact on this world, you were probably a burden upon it. Not my job to make you not a burden. It is my job to make you realize you are one. Decide, or number two, you can decide that the amount of suffering in the world is too great, and you know how to fix it. You can see the future, Bob, right? We all can. And Bob, you're smart. You wouldn't be making these arguments on a Facebook forum dedicated to Dr. Peterson if you weren't smart. So you can see into the future, and the future you see is dark and horrible and nothing but suffering, and mankind is stuck in a mire of filth and hurt and angst and pain until whenever the game over happens. Heat death of the universe, or any of those other things I said. And you can do something about that because you're a logical person. You understand suffering better than other people do because you've come to the right conclusion. You think you're the only one that has. And I can tell you haven't listened to Dr. Peterson's arguments because he makes this case quite clearly. If you think you know better than billions of people and you can make a decision for their life because you understand suffering better than anybody else, like the boys that shot up Columbine, then not only must you take yourself out to end your own suffering, but you must do the moral thing to reduce the amount of suffering on this planet by taking as many other people out as possible. That's the logical extension of this. And there is no in between. You will eventually get there. Tolstoy did. He had to keep from hanging himself. You come to this conclusion, and then you feel you would be doing morality by killing people. It's very disturbing. But it's logical. Or, thank God, there's choice number 3. You can decide the opposite of 2. Life is steadily improving. Yeah, it still hurts. Yeah, there's still suffering. Yeah, there's still a lot of problems. Which direction is it going? Big war. Big plague. Still up. Still up. If you believe that, why is it improving? Even more importantly, why is it improving more in certain countries than others? Is it because of colonialism and the exploitation of poor countries? Maybe. Or is it because those were the countries where the most people understood this? Your job is to make the world as awesome as you can, not just for yourself, but in a way that makes it as awesome for yourself while making it awesome for somebody else, and the someone else's include the people in the future that are not born yet. If you don't include them, then you make the wrong choice, and our government makes the wrong choice all the damn time. It sells our future unborn children into debt and slavery to the government. Another video. But the more people that are born into this world, the higher the chances that you're going to get the next Einstein, the next Newton, the next Hawking, the guys that are going to build whatever, who knows what it's going to be, AI, nanobots. I mean, we just have an inkling of the idea of what future technology might bring for us. The barest inkling. But I can guarantee you one thing, if we don't do our best to prepare the world for those future unborn children, then the chances of those new giants being born will be lower. So then you have the choice of realizing that, and so it's not just a game with no meaning. That's why Dr. Peterson's first book was called Maps of Meaning, because he was dealing with all this. What's the point of all this suffering? Dear God, we're almost about to end the game with nuclear hellfire. And it bothered him. Bothered him so much that he created what he did. Thank God he did. Isn't that amazing how someone torturing their own soul can end up producing so much good? It's a little flabbergasting. I can't wait to meet the man. I'm going to meet him June 1st. I'm really excited. To make the world as best we can for the future people that will inhabit it, we need to do several things. We need to be kind to our children and encourage them to understand this truism. I believe it is a truism, because we wouldn't be here without this idea. It's also the reason why Christian countries are some of the most prosperous in the world, because this idea is at the core of Christianity. And at this point, I don't know what I believe in anymore. It's definitely not Sky Daddy God, but it's not nothing either. I don't think it's mystical. I just think it's a really good message. I don't know. I'm not sure how to articulate that, but I want to get back into the argument. What would the giants who sacrificed before you so that you can be here say when they hear you saying that, well, when they see you standing upon their shoulders, laying down in comfort, playing God of War 4? What would they want you to do? I think what they would do is look at you like this, if they were still alive and you were this little pissant video game player on their shoulder. Sorry, that was rude. I feel that way. People that ignore their responsibilities really upset me these days. It's what happens when you have kids that you love and respect. then you get out of your own shell and you sacrifice for them. What would they say? They look at you sitting on your shoulder and they'd go, "This is what I worked for? So you can sit around and play video games and masturbate to porn? Get off." Maybe that's something like the wrath of God. Yeah, one of those is going to be plenty. Okay. Hey, well, so if you chose option one, you're just hanging around, sitting on the shoulders of giants, having your fun. Fine, your choice, your body. It's your time on this world. Do what you want. We can part ways at this point. If we do that, I've got a problem. Some point, the suffering in your body is going to become greater. It may be either a biological thing or a mental thing. Either the amount of pleasure you can get from the things you're doing to entertain yourself is going to go down, or the amount of suffering from your body starting to break down is going to increase. Eventually, if this is pleasure and this is your suffering, the movement of the two is going to start to get in line. And then when this starts happening and suffering goes up, and you don't think you can push it back up the way it was, because we all do this balancing act. Sometimes we're not all, happy the whole time. But eventually, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck down here. I forgot which hand I use. But you're going to get stuck down in the abyss somewhere, and you're not going to be able to see the way out. So then you've got your choices of, do you take yourself out, or do you migrate to choice 2 or 3? There's a chance you're going to pick choice 2. Because you're moral and logical, you believe. And so if you pick choice 2, what was choice 2? Taking out as many people as possible before you leave, because you understand suffering, and you're saving these people, not killing them, you're saving them. Under choice 2. This is the choice of nihilism. This is what nihilism leads to. If you end up choosing choice 3 and changing your life and turning it around, then I will be forever grateful that you were able to come to that conclusion. So if we part ways at this point with you staying in number 1, I'm always going to have to worry about, are you going to come back sometime with choice 2? I don't know what's going to happen in your life. And so I have to continue to make my argument. Because even if I'm not around, if I've left this world, if I've run out of the end of my biological rope, I have children in this world, and that means I want the game to go on. Because there will always be a chance for more light on the other side for them. I can see why you would think that this is selfish of me. After all, I'm advocating for my children, and you made the choice not to have kids. Probably for this exact reason. Because when you have children, you expect things of other people. You expect them to act in a certain way to protect the structures and memes of the world, philosophy of the world that allowed it to come into this place where there's not that much suffering anymore, not compared to how there was. So yeah, I want to impose my will on you, but I won't. That's against my philosophy. I don't aggress against people. I speak, and I don't let go when I know they're not doing their best. And I do it to myself, because I'm still not doing my best. I don't think I ever will, but I guarantee that my best in a few weeks is going to be better than what I'm doing right now. I'm not so sure that that's true of you, Bob. So I'm going to give you this argument so that when, or maybe even it's an if for you, you do reach the point of having to choose between 2 and 3, you have a greater chance of picking 3. 3 is a lot more fun. 2 just means you're doing like the guy in the Las Vegas Tower, Mandalay Bay. That guy was really unstable, and he was smart. He was a video poker player. I played video poker. I knew how to play the games in a way that they would pay off. So did he. Who knows what happened to him? But he made choice number 2. Smart people often do. And then you get things like mass shootings. It's not a mental disorder. Well, I don't know what a mental disorder is, honestly. We don't understand the mind that well. But if a mental disorder is something that prevents choice 3 from happening, and as many people perpetuating their lives and their threads of genes forward into the world, then yeah, that means you're sick in the head to me. But maybe not in an incurable way. So I've got every reason to get in your face, because if you were living your life through choice number 1 of hubris and hedonism and nihilism, there's always a chance for you picking choice number 2 of going full-blown, I'm saving the world from suffering mode, and I'm leaving it and doing a favor to as many people that don't understand what I understand by killing them while I go. There's always that chance for that kind of personality. So you're not going to want to hear this. It messes with the amount of fun that you're going to have right now, because I'm throwing a future possibility in front of you that you think is no way it's ever going to happen, because you're like, no, I wouldn't ever do that to anybody. I'm happy now, and I will make the logical choice to take myself out. Well, okay, good. I'm glad you feel that way now. I'm going to assume that you do. That's why you're not running around shooting people. But you're making a fatal flaw. You're not really seeing the future. What you're actually doing is you are projecting your current persona straight forward into the future. That's wrong. That is incorrect. It is very difficult to predict the future that far forward with a nihilistic perspective, because you don't know if you're going to have that perspective anymore. Because the persona that's inhabiting you, something may happen. You may go down to the abyss. You may kill off the nihilistic persona, and then something else is going to awaken. It doesn't have to be that drastic, though. It could just be that you still have the nihilistic persona. You still have choice number 1 inhabiting your head. But that persona starts to be less and less happy with the dopamine drip that it can get from video games or whatever you're doing to kill your time. So you're not going to feel the same in the future. You could. I think it's a very unlikely scenario. Very unlikely. Not a good one to accept as an absolute. You're probably going to stick with your view anyways. You're not going to change your mind. I'm not going to change your mind. Even if we argued for an hour a day for a year, I don't think that I would be able to change your mind. But and also an unfortunate reality is, we're probably going to part ways at this point. And I'm not going to know what you pick in the future. You end up with choice 2 or 3. So, hey, Bob, do me a favor. And forgive me for being such a stubborn, rude asshole in our conversation. You can hold a grudge against me. I'll give you that. Not that it's any business for me to tell you how to feel about me. I haven't been particularly nice or kind. I've been very critical. And very harsh around the edges, to put it nicely. But do me a favor and read this at some point. Watch this video. I'm going to put the script and video together. Use it as an example to your friends who you want to impress on your logical conclusions and how ignorant and stupid I am. Show them how you won the argument and destroy my premises and thus my conclusion. Take comfort in winning, and then you can have some fun right now and continue on your path. Share it around and let the fingers point at me. I'm fine with that. But remember this conversation, Bob. One day you're going to need it. And you're going to think I'm a cocky son of a bitch for saying that. It's alright. Nobody likes to be told what to do. And I'm not telling you what to do. I just think this is going to be useful for you at some point in the future, and you don't see that yet. This is the thing that pisses people off about Christians. It's because their faith automatically gives them choice number 3 if they're doing it right. Then one day, Bob, when you are in darkness and you can no longer see the light of the future, and it's only suffering, you look me up. I'm very serious. Try to find me, or someone like me at least. Don't check out before you do when you are suffering and hurting. Let's argue again. And maybe next time I'll be able to change your mind. And you won't leave us. But right now on the road you are on, you will leave us. You are a logical person and you will make that choice. I know this. There's a very high probability. Take care, Bob. I hope that you will make the right choice.